Caitlin Clark could be refusing to use Indiana Fever medical staff.
Caitlin Clark just delivered the ultimate slap in the face to the Indiana Fever medical staff, and Stephanie White's announcement made it crystal clear. Applause. Ice looks like she's in pain.
Looks like she's in pain.
After yet another injury disaster, Caitlin is apparently done trusting the team doctors and going her own route. The medical staff just got fired by their own superstar, and the fallout is But before we get into this medical staff meltdown, let me know in the comments. Do you think Caitlin Clark is right to ditch the Fever doctors after all these cringe injuries? Well, folks, we've officially reached the point where
Caitlin Clark has already been ruled out for tomorrow's game, Tuesday night, against New York. In New York.
Clark has apparently had enough of the Indiana Fever's medical circus. And honestly, can you blame her? When your star player keeps getting hurt every few games, and the medical staff seems about as reliable as a chocolate teapot, maybe it's time to find some actual Stephanie White just dropped some information that basically confirms what everyone with functioning brain cells already suspected. The Fever medical staff has completely lost Caitlin Clark's trust, and she's taking her injury management into her own. Let's break down what actually happened here, because the clues are scattered throughout Stephanie White's recent comments like breadcrumbs leading to a medical disaster. When she was asked about Caitlin's injury status, she said something very telling. Date Varian seems to be missing. She said Caitlin is going to see some doctors and get more tests run early in the week. Not CR doctors or CT team doctors, but some doctors. That's not the link.
Well, I haven't seen C since the game last night, but I think she's progressing. I think that we're continuing to address everything that needs to be addressed. She's gonna see some doctors and get some more tests run early in the week. I don't expect her to be available on Tuesday, so we're just gonna continue to take it one day at a time and let her get her evaluations early this week, and then once we've done that, hopefully we'll have more of a clear line of what it looks like.
Would you use when your player is sticking with the team medical staff? That's the language you use when your player has basically fired your medical team and gone shopping for competent healthcare. The timing of all this is absolutely perfect. 2, because it comes right after multiple actual medical professionals publicly criticized how the Fever have been handling Caitlin's injuries, when real doctors are calling out your medical staff on social media.
They look like 2 different doctors just told the shocking truth about Caitlin Clark.
That's probably a sign that something's gone wrong. Dr. Jesse Morris, who's an actual athletic medicine expert, basically littered the Fever medical staff by saying that whatever they're doing is unfortunately not enough. Not kind of working, not needs improvement, but straight up not enough. That's medical professionals speak for these people, have no idea what they're doing. The injured Tanlin tells the whole story. 2. Caitlin Clark has been dealing with groin and quad issues since literally the beginning of the season. Left groin strain, then another left groin strain, then a right groin strain. She hasn't been able to play 5 consecutive full games all season back as something keeps breaking down. Not normal wear and tear from playing basketball. That's either terrible luck or terrible medical management, and when it keeps happening over and over again, luck stops being a reasonable explanation. The fact Thatch keeps getting the same types of injuries suggests that whatever treatment and rehabilitation she's been getting isn't addressing the root cause of the problem. Real medical professions have pointed out that groin strains are notoriously tricky to heal properly, and if you don't handle them correctly, they just keep coming back. But here's where it gets really interesting. Multiple doctors have assumed that Caitlin needs more advanced treatment options, including things like stem cell injections and hyperbaric chamber therapy. These aren't technically basic treatments that every TM medical staff is equipped to handle. When Dr. Morris suggested that Caitlin might need stem cell injections at the specific tendon attachment points, that's not something your average team doctor is probably doing in the locker room. That requires specialist expertise and equipment that maybe, just maybe, the Indiana Fever medical staff doesn't have. The way Stephanie White has been talking about these injuries been suspicious from the beginning. 2. She keeps saying Caitlin is stato day when actual medical professions are saying groin strains are more like week-to-week injuries. Either she doesn't understand what her medical staff is telling her, or her medical staff doesn't understand what they are dealing with. The pattern of communication around these injuries has been weird. 2. Remember when Stephanie White claimed she didn't know about Caitlin's injury until the night before she was ruled out? Either the medical staff isn't communicating properly or don't actually know what's going on with their star player's health. Now, we're hearing that Caitlin is going to see some doctors to get a clearer picture of what's happening. That sounds like someone who's lost confidence in medical advice she's been getting once a second, third, and probably fourth opinion from people who actually know what they're doing. The financial implications of this are huge. 2. Caitlin Clark is the face of the one bond, probably worth millions of dollars in revenue to the league and the Fever organization. When your most valuable asset keeps getting injured because of questionable medical management, that's a business problem as much as it is a health problem. Think about it from Caitlin's perspective. She's in her second year as a professional athlete. She's at the peak of her earning potential, and she keeps getting hurt in ways that seem preventable with proper medical care. Of course, she's going to seek out the best possible treatment, even if it means going around her own team's medical staff. The comparison to their professional sports is stark. 2. NBA players routinely get second opinions and seek out specialization when they're dealing with recurring injuries. The fact that this seems unusual in the WNBA probably says more about the league's medical standards than it does about Caitlin's decision-making. The Chicago Bulls comparison that's been floating around is particularly damaging for the Fever. The Bulls became notorious for mishandling player injuries, most famously with Derrick Rose. If the Fever are getting compared to the organization when it comes to medical management, that's not exactly a badge of honor. What's really telling is how quickly this injury situation escalated. Caitlin was playing well, seemed healthy, and then suddenly she's dealing with multiple groin and quad issues that keep recurring. That suggests either a fundamental problem with her training and conditioning program or a fundamental problem with how her injuries are being diagnosed and treated. The fact that doctors are suggesting she might need to be shut down for extended periods or re-injuring these same areas for the rest of the season is terrifying for every. That's not the kind of medical advice you get when things are being handled properly. Stephanie White's slang around the injury has been consistently confusing too. She keeps talking about taking things one day at a time and being dietode, but then, in the same breath, she's saying they don't expect Caitlin to be available for upcoming games. Those two things don't truly match up. The timing with the All-Star game made this even more obvious. Caitlin missed the biggest showcase event of the WNBA season back of an injury that the team apparently didn't see coming or could control. That's a massive failure on multiple levels. The fan reaction has been brutal. 2. People are starting to question whether the Fever organization is capable of properly managing their most important player. When your fan base is losing confidence in your medical staff, that's a problem that goes way beyond just basketball. The media coverage has been interesting base. Most outlets are trying to be diplomatic about this, but the subtext is pretty clear. When reporters asking pointed questions about Caitlin seeking outside medical opinions, they're not just making conversation. What's really damaging is that this is still happening in public. In most professional sports, when players seek second opinions or outside medical care, it's handled quietly behind the scenes. The fact that this is becoming a public discussion suggests that the relationship between Caitlin and the team medical staff has broken down pretty significantly. The impact on team chemistry could be interesting too. If a star player doesn't trust the medical staff, what does that say to Theodore players? Are they going to start questioning the quality of medical care they're receiving? Are they going to start seeking outside opinions? 2. The league office has to be paying attention to this situation as well. The one can't afford to have their biggest star instantly injured because of questionable medical management. At some point, they might need to step in and make sure their most valuable asset is being properly cared for. The comparsanto, how NBA superstars are treated medically, is probably not lost on Caitlin either. LeBron James has a whole team of personal, medical, and training practitioners. Steph Curry gets the best possible care for his injury issues. Why's old Caitlin Clark accept lesser treatment just because she plays in the WNBA? The financial aspect of this decision makes perfect sense. 2. If Caitlin is going to have a long, successful career, she needs to make sure her body can handle the demands of professional basketball. If the team medical staff isn't providing that level of care, then seeking outside help is just smart business. The precedent this sets could be significant for other WNBA players too. If the league's biggest star doesn't trust team medical staffs and goes outside for treatment, other players might start doing the same thing. That could force teams to upgrade their medical programs across the board. The insurance and liability issues are irreparably interesting. 2. If Caitlin is seeking outside medical treatment, who's paying for that? Who's responsible if something goes wrong? These are the kinds of complications should arise when players lose confidence on team medical staff. The impact on Caitlin's relationship with the organization could be lasting too, even if her injuries heal properly with outside treatment. The fact that she felt the need to go around the team medical staff is going to be remembered. That's not exactly a vote of confidence in the organization's ability to take care of their players. The broader implications for the WNBA are significant as well. If teams can't provide adequate medical care for their star players, what does that say about the league's overall professionalism and competitiveness? How can you attract and retain top talent? If players don't trust the medical support they're receiving, the developmental aspect is important too. Caitlin is still relatively early in her professional career, and how her injuries are handled now could affect their long-term health and performance. Getting proper treatment now could mean the difference between a long successful career and one cut short by recurring injuries. The public relations nightmare for Thea Fever is just beginning. 2. Having your star player publicly seek outside medical treatment is not exactly the kind of story you want circulating about your organization. It raises questions about competence and professionalism that are hard to answer. The coaching staff has to be concerned about this, too. Stephanie White is trying to build a competitive team, but she can't do that if her best player keeps getting gingered. If the medical staff isn't part of the solution, then maybe seeking outside help is the only option. The fan experience is suffering as well. People buy tickets and tune in to watch Caitlin Clark play, and when she's constantly injured, that affects attendance, viewership, and overall interest in the medical staff's inability to keep her healthy is literally costing the organization money. The league's relationships with Caitlin could be the WNBA needs her healthy and playing to maintain the momentum and interest she's generated. If the league feels like the Fever aren't properly managing their most important asset, that could create some interesting dynamics. The long-term implications are probably the most concerning. If Caitlin can't trust the team medical staff with her current injuries, what happens when Chef S's more serious health issues? Professional athletes' careers are shortened now without having to worry about whether their medical care is adequate. The precedent for other young players is important too. If the league's brightest young star doesn't feel like she's getting proper medical care from team staff, what message does that send to other talented players considering profession's basketball careers? They comparison to other professional